The train's whistle screamed through the late afternoon heat of Delta, Colorado, announcing its departure in 3 minutes. And Willa Crawford knew with absolute certainty that the man who was supposed to claim her as his bride had just disappeared into the crowd without a backward glance. She stood on the dusty platform with her weathered carpetbag clutched in both hands, watching Thomas Henderson's retreating back as he hurried away after seeing her limp down the metal steps. The conductor was already calling for final boarding, and the other passengers who had disembarked were being swept up by waiting families or heading purposefully toward the town's main street. Only Willa remained, her left leg aching from the long journey, her heart pounding with a mixture of humiliation and rising panic. "Miss, you boarding or staying?" The conductor called to her, one hand on the rail. Willa turned to look at him, her green eyes wide with uncertainty. "I'm staying," she managed, though her voice came out smaller than she intended. The train lurched forward with a great hiss of steam, and then it was gone, leaving Willa alone on the platform with the September sun beating down on her bonnet. She had traveled all the way from Philadelphia, responding to an advertisement Thomas Henderson had placed in the newspaper seeking a wife. They had exchanged letters for 4 months, and he had seemed kind enough on paper, describing his mercantile business and his modest home on the edge of town. He had never asked about her health or her history, and she had not volunteered the information about her leg, injured badly in a carriage accident when she was 16. That had been 6 years ago, and while she had learned to manage the limp and the occasional sharp pains, she knew it made her less desirable as a potential wife. She should have told him. She knew that now. Willa picked up her bag and started walking toward the main street, each step sending a small jolt through her left hip. Delta was smaller than she had expected, with wooden buildings lining a wide dirt road and the mountains rising dramatically in the distance. The air smelled different here, drier and filled with sage. She passed a saloon where piano music drifted out through the swinging doors, then a general store with barrels of goods stacked outside. A few people stared at her as she walked, and she felt her cheeks burning with shame. She had nowhere to go. The money she had saved for the journey was nearly gone, spent on the train ticket and meals along the way. She had exactly $4.30 in her reticule, enough perhaps for a few nights at a boarding house if Delta had one, but then what? She could not go back to Philadelphia. Her aunt had made it clear that Willa was no longer welcome after refusing a proposal from the butcher's son, a mean-spirited man who drank too much and had cruel hands. The street seemed to stretch endlessly before her, and Willa felt tears threatening to spill over. She blinked them back furiously, refusing to cry in public. She would find a place to sit, to think, to figure out what to do next. That was when she saw the ranch hand leading a horse down the street, a magnificent black stallion that was clearly agitated. The horse reared suddenly, yanking the rope from the young man's hands, and people scattered as the animal bolted directly toward Willa. She froze, her bad leg locking up the way it sometimes did when she was startled, and she knew she could not move fast enough to get out of the way. A strong arm wrapped around her waist and pulled her sideways with such force that her feet left the ground. She found herself pressed against a solid chest, her face buried in the rough fabric of a work shirt that smelled of leather and hay, and something indefinably masculine. The horse thundered past where she had been standing just a moment before, and she heard shouting as several men worked to catch the spooked animal. "Are you hurt?" A deep voice asked above her head. Willa pulled back slightly and looked up into the face of her rescuer. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of storm clouds. His face was sun-weathered and handsome in a rugged way, with strong features and a jaw shadowed with stubble. He was looking down at her with genuine concern, his arm still around her waist, steadying her. "I'm fine," she said breathlessly. "Thank you. I couldn't move fast enough." She felt him register her words, saw his gaze flicker downward briefly before returning to her face. He did not let go immediately, seeming to sense that she needed the support. "That horse has been trouble since we brought him in," the man said. "Are you certain you are not injured? Just shaken," Willa admitted. Her leg was throbbing now, but that was from the tension and the awkward way she had been grabbed, not from any new injury. The man finally released her, but he stayed close, as if ready to catch her again if needed. "I'm Isaac Yates," he said. "I own the Double Y Ranch about 5 miles north of town." "Willa Crawford," she replied, then added impulsively, "I was supposed to be getting married today, but the groom took one look at me and left." She did not know why she told him that. Perhaps it was the kindness in his eyes, or the way he had not immediately pulled away when he realized she could not walk properly. Perhaps she was simply too tired and overwhelmed to maintain polite pretenses. Isaac's expression darkened. "Thomas Henderson?" he asked. Willa nodded, surprised. "You know him?" "Everyone knows everyone in Delta," Isaac said. "Henderson is a fool then, his loss." He paused, studying her face. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" "Not yet," Willa admitted. "I was going to look for a boarding house." Isaac was quiet for a moment, and Willa could see him thinking. Finally, he said, "My housekeeper quit last week to marry a mining engineer up in Leadville. The ranch house is a mess. My cook cannot manage the household accounts, and I have been eating burned beans for 6 days straight." "Can you keep a house?" Willa stared at him. "You're offering me employment, room, board, and $15 a month," Isaac said. "It's hard work, and the ranch is isolated, but it's honest employment if you need it." It was more than she had hoped for, more than she deserved given her current circumstances. Willa felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. "I can keep a house," she said. "I managed my aunt's household for 4 years. I can do accounts, mending, cooking, cleaning, all of it." "Can you ride a horse?" Isaac asked. Willa hesitated. "I could before my accident. I haven't tried since." Isaac nodded slowly. "We will get you there in the wagon then. I need to finish my business in town, get supplies loaded. Can you wait an hour?" "I can wait," Willa said. She would have waited all day if necessary. This was a lifeline, unexpected and generous, and she was not foolish enough to refuse it. Isaac gestured toward a bench outside the general store. "Sit there in the shade. I'll find you when I'm ready to leave." He paused, then added, "Welcome to Delta, Miss Crawford. I'm sorry your arrival was not what you expected, but things have a way of working out." Willa watched him walk away, his long strides confident and purposeful. She made her way to the bench and sat down carefully, relief flooding through her. She had a job. She had a place to go. It was not what she had planned, but Isaac Yates was right. Perhaps things would work out after all. The hour passed slowly. Willa watched the townspeople go about their business, noting the way folks greeted each other with familiarity, the way children ran freely down the boardwalks, the way the mountains loomed in the distance like sleeping giants. She saw Thomas Henderson once, hurrying past on the other side of the street, and she felt nothing but a vague sense of pity for him. He had been too cowardly to even speak to her, to give her a chance to explain. Isaac returned driving a large wagon loaded with supplies. He jumped down with easy grace and offered her his hand. "Ready?" Willa took his hand and let him help her up onto the wagon seat. His grip was warm and strong, and he waited patiently while she settled herself, not rushing her despite her awkward movements. They left Delta behind, following a dirt road that wound north through scrubland dotted with sage and juniper. The September afternoon was beginning to cool, and the light turned golden as it slanted across the landscape. Isaac did not talk much, seeming content with the silence, and Willa found herself relaxing despite her exhaustion. "Tell me about the ranch," she said finally, curious about her new home. Isaac glanced at her, seeming pleased by the question. "I have about 2,000 acres, running mostly cattle with some horses. I have 5 men working for me full-time, good men. There's a bunkhouse for them, separate from the main house. My cook is old Pete, who is excellent with meat and terrible with everything else. He tries, but the man cannot bake bread to save his life, and he thinks seasoning is a sign of weakness." Willa smiled despite herself. "I can bake bread." "Then you are already worth more than your wages," Isaac said. "The house itself is decent-sized. My father built it 20 years ago when he first claimed the land. 4 bedrooms upstairs, parlor and kitchen downstairs, plus a small room off the kitchen that was my mother's sewing room. That can be yours if you like. It has a bed and a window facing east." "Your parents?" Willa asked carefully. "Both gone," Isaac said. His voice was matter-of-fact, but Willa heard the old grief underneath. "Father died 5 years ago, thrown from a horse. Mother passed 2 years later, fever." "I'm sorry," Willa said softly. Isaac nodded acknowledgement. "It's just me now. I have a sister, but she married a railroad man and moved to California. We write, but I have not seen her in 3 years." He paused. "What about you? Any family?" "My parents died when I was young," Willa said. "Yellow fever. I was raised by my aunt in Philadelphia. She never married, never had children of her own. I don't think she really wanted me there, but she did her duty." Willa looked down at her hands. "After my accident, I became even more of a burden. When Thomas's advertisement seemed like a respectable way to start over, my aunt encouraged me to respond." "The limp," Isaac said. "How did it happen?" Most people avoided asking directly. Willa appreciated his straightforwardness. "Carriage accident when I was 16. The wheel broke on a turn and the whole thing overturned. I was thrown clear, but a piece of the wreckage landed on my leg. The doctor said I was lucky it did not have to be amputated. It healed, but not properly. I can walk, but not quickly, and not without pain on bad days." "Does today qualify as a bad day?" Isaac asked. "Today has been many things," Willa said carefully. "But I'll manage." They crested a hill, and suddenly the ranch spread out before them in a small valley. The house was larger than Willa had expected, a 2-story structure made of weathered wood with a wide porch wrapping around the front. There were several outbuildings, including a large barn, a bunkhouse, and various sheds and corrals. Cattle dotted the hillsides, and she could see men working near the barn. "It's beautiful," Willa said sincerely. Isaac looked at the ranch as if seeing it through her eyes. "It's home," he said simply. "Come on. I'll introduce you to Pete and get you settled." The ranch hands all stopped working to stare as Isaac helped Willa down from the wagon. She felt their curious gazes but kept her head high. Isaac introduced her matter-of-factly. "This is Miss Crawford. She'll be taking over as housekeeper. Treat her with respect." The men all nodded, murmuring greetings. They seemed like decent sorts, weathered and rough but not unkind. Old Pete turned out to be a grizzled man in his 60s with a spectacular mustache and a missing tooth. He looked at Willa with open relief. "You can cook, miss?" he asked hopefully. "I can," Willa assured him. "Praise the Lord," Pete said fervently. "I have been doing my best, but the boss here is too polite to tell me I am poisoning him slowly." Isaac snorted. "I told you yesterday your beans tasted like saddle leather." "You said they were fine," Pete protested. "I was being kind," Isaac said. He turned to Willa. "Let me show you the house." The interior was indeed in need of a woman's touch. Dust covered most surfaces, dishes were piled in the kitchen, and the floors needed sweeping desperately. But the bones of the house were good, with solid furniture and large windows that let in plenty of light. Isaac showed her through the rooms quickly, ending at the small room off the kitchen. "This was my mother's space," he said, opening the door. "She did her mending here, her correspondence. It's yours now if you want it." The room was small but charming, with a narrow bed covered in a faded quilt, a wooden dresser, and a rocking chair positioned near the window. Willa could see the barn from here, and beyond it the mountains. "It's perfect," she said. She set her carpetbag down on the bed and turned to face Isaac. "Thank you, Mr. Yates. You did not have to help me today, but you did. I won't disappoint you." "Isaac," he said. "Just Isaac. And I have a feeling you are exactly what this ranch needs, Miss Crawford." "Willa," she replied. "If I'm to be your housekeeper, we should probably use first names." Something shifted in Isaac's expression, a warmth that had not been there before. "Willa," he repeated, as if testing the name. "It suits you. Now I'll let you get settled. Come to the kitchen when you're ready, and I'll show you where everything is kept." After he left, Willa sank down onto the bed and let herself feel the full weight of the day. She had been abandoned, nearly trampled, and was now miles from town working for a stranger. But the room was clean and quiet, and through the window she could see the sun setting in brilliant shades of orange and pink behind the mountains. She was safe. She had work. She had a chance to start over. That was more than she had hoped for this morning when she boarded the train in Philadelphia. Over the next few days, Willa threw herself into her work with determination. She scrubbed the ranch house from top to bottom, organized the pantry, mended curtains that had been hanging crooked for months, and took over all the cooking from Pete, who returned to his work with the cattle with evident relief. The ranch hands were initially wary of her, but they warmed up quickly when they tasted her first dinner: roasted chicken, fresh bread, and apple pie made from preserved fruit she found in the cellar. Isaac was different from any man Willa had known before. He was quiet but not cold, serious but capable of dry humor. He worked alongside his men from dawn until dusk, whether they were mending fences, moving cattle, or breaking horses. He came in for dinner, each evening covered in dust and sweat, always thanking her for the meal, always asking if she needed anything. He never mentioned her limp, never showed impatience when she moved slowly, never made her feel like less than a capable worker. On her fourth day at the ranch, Willa woke before dawn as usual and started breakfast. She was frying bacon when Isaac came down from his bedroom upstairs, still tucking in his shirt. His hair was damp from washing, and he looked surprised to see her already working. "You don't have to start this early," he said. "The men need to eat before they start work," Willa replied. "Besides, I like the quiet of the morning." Isaac poured himself coffee from the pot she had already prepared and leaned against the counter, watching her work. "You have done more in 4 days than I could have managed in 4 months," he said. "The house feels like a home again." Willa felt herself flush with pleasure at the compliment. "It's a good house. It just needed some attention." "You are limping more this morning," Isaac observed. "Is the work too much?" Willa had hoped he would not notice. Her leg had been particularly painful this morning, stiff and aching. "It's just the weather changing," she said. "It gets worse when a storm is coming." Isaac looked out the window at the clear sky. "There's no storm predicted." "My leg is better than any weather prediction," Willa said with a slight smile. "Trust me, there will be rain by tomorrow." She was right. By late afternoon the next day, dark clouds had rolled in from the mountains, and by evening a steady rain was falling. The men came in soaked for dinner, and Willa served them hot stew and fresh biscuits. Isaac looked at her with new respect. "You called the weather," he said. "Told you," Willa replied. "The leg never lies." After dinner, after the men had returned to the bunkhouse and the dishes were washed, Willa found Isaac standing on the front porch watching the rain. She brought him a cup of coffee and he accepted it with a nod of thanks. "May I ask you something?" Willa said. "Always," Isaac replied. "Why did you help me that day in town? You could have just kept walking after the horse passed." Isaac was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the rain-soaked landscape. Finally, he said, "My sister has a similar injury. Different cause, but the same result. She fell from a tree when we were children, and her leg never healed right. She used to cry because people would stare, because young men would court her and then disappear when they realized she could not dance or walk long distances. It made her feel worthless, even though she was smart and kind and capable of anything she set her mind to." He turned to look at Willa. "When I saw you standing there alone, when I realized what Henderson had done, I saw my sister. I saw the same hurt, the same determination not to break down in public. I could not walk away from that." Willa felt tears prick her eyes. "That was kind of you." "It was decent of me," Isaac corrected. "There's a difference. Kindness is extra, decency is the baseline." "Most people don't even manage decency," Willa said softly. "Then most people are failing at the basics," Isaac replied. He smiled slightly. "You have proven yourself here, Willa. The men like you, the house has never looked better, and I have gained 10 pounds from your cooking. You have nothing to prove to me or anyone else." Something warm unfurled in Willa's chest. "Thank you," she whispered. They stood together in companionable silence, watching the rain fall, and Willa realized with a start that she was happy. For the first time in years, she felt valued and useful and at peace. The weeks passed quickly. September turned to October, and the aspens on the mountainsides turned brilliant gold. Willa settled into the rhythm of ranch life, learning which men preferred their coffee black and which liked sugar, learning when Isaac would return from checking the herds and when he would be gone all day. She learned to read his moods from the set of his shoulders, learned when he needed conversation and when he needed silence. Isaac, in turn, learned her patterns. He started bringing her wildflowers from the meadow, claiming he just happened to see them while riding. He moved heavy items without being asked, anticipating when she would struggle. He began sitting with her in the kitchen after dinner while she kneaded bread dough for the next day, telling her stories about the ranch, about his childhood, about his dreams for the future. "I want to expand the herd," he told her one evening. "Get into breeding quality stock, not just beef cattle. Build a reputation for the Double Y brand." "You could do it," Willa said, shaping the dough into loaves. "You have the land, the knowledge, the work ethic." "It would take capital," Isaac said. "I would need to buy breeding stock, build better facilities. It's a risk." "All good things involve risk," Willa replied. She looked up at him, flour dusting her hands. "If you don't reach for more, you stay standing still." "Sometimes standing still is safer, but it's not living." Isaac held her gaze. "Is that what you were doing, reaching for more when you answered Henderson's advertisement?" "I was reaching for anything," Willa admitted. "I just wanted a life that was mine, not borrowed from my aunt's charity. I wanted to matter to someone." "You matter here," Isaac said quietly. "To me." The air between them seemed to thicken. Willa found herself unable to look away from him, seeing something in his storm-gray eyes that made her heart race. But before either of them could say more, they heard footsteps on the porch, and one of the ranch hands knocked on the door with a question about supplies. The moment passed, but something had shifted between them. In early November, a letter arrived from Thomas Henderson. It was delivered by a boy from town who had ridden out specifically with the mail. Willa stared at the envelope with her name written in Henderson's cramped handwriting, and her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The letter was brief and formal. Henderson wrote that he had heard she was working at the Double Y Ranch, and he wanted to apologize for his behavior. He claimed he had panicked, that he had been surprised, but upon reflection he believed they could still make a match if she was willing. He asked her to come back to town to discuss the possibility. Willa read the letter twice, then carefully folded it and set it on the table. She felt nothing. No excitement, no relief, not even anger, just a vague sense of disappointment that he had bothered to write at all. Isaac came in from mending a fence, saw the letter, and glanced at her face. "Bad news, complicated news," Willa said. She handed him the letter. "Thomas Henderson wants to try again." Isaac read the letter slowly, his expression growing darker with each line. When he finished, he set it down with deliberate care. "What do you want to do?" "I don't know," Willa admitted. "Part of me says I should at least talk to him. It's what I came here for after all, to be married." "And the other part?" Isaac asked, his voice carefully neutral. Willa met his eyes. "The other part says I'm happy here. Happier than I have been in years. The other part says that a man who left me standing on a train platform does not deserve a second chance." "He does not," Isaac said flatly. "But it's your choice, Willa. I won't influence you either way." But he already had influenced her, Willa realized. Everything about her life at the Double Y had influenced her. She had found purpose here, found respect, found something that felt dangerously close to belonging. "I need to go to town," she said finally. Not to accept his offer, but to refuse it properly. "He deserves that much at least, and I need to close that door completely." Isaac nodded. "I'll take you tomorrow. I need to pick up supplies anyway." They left early the next morning, the wagon rattling along the familiar road to Delta. Willa wore her best dress, a dark blue wool that brought out her eyes, and she had pinned her brown hair up carefully. Isaac had shaved and put on a clean shirt, and Willa caught herself noticing the way the fabric stretched across his broad shoulders, the way his hands held the reins with casual confidence. When they reached Delta, Isaac helped her down from the wagon and said, "I'll be at the general store when you are finished." Willa walked to Henderson's mercantile with her head held high, ignoring the curious stares of townspeople who recognized her. The store was well kept, shelves stocked with dry goods and household items. Thomas Henderson stood behind the counter, helping a customer, and when he saw Willa he went pale. "Miss Crawford," he said, quickly finishing the transaction and shooing the customer out. "You came." "I came to give you an answer," Willa said. She stood straight despite the ache in her leg from the wagon ride. "The answer is no, Mr. Henderson. I will not marry you. I will not even consider marrying you." Henderson's face flushed. "Now see here, I apologized in the letter. A man can make a mistake and try to correct it. A mistake is bringing the wrong change or forgetting an appointment," Willa said coldly. "What you did was cruel. You left me stranded in a strange town without a word, without even the basic courtesy of an explanation. That's not a mistake. That's a failure of character. It was your fault for not telling me about the limp," Henderson protested. "You deceived me." "I omitted information," Willa corrected. "You omitted basic human decency. I think my sin is the lesser one." She pulled the letter from her reticule and set it on the counter. "Thank you for the offer, but I am happy where I am. I wish you well, Mr. Henderson, but please do not contact me again." She turned and walked out of the store, her heart pounding but her head clear. She had done it. She had closed that door completely. Isaac was waiting outside the general store, leaning against the wagon with his arms crossed. He straightened when he saw her. "How did it go?" "It went well," Willa said. "I told him no. I told him not to contact me again." Something like relief crossed Isaac's face. "Good," he said. That man does not deserve you. No, Willa agreed. He does not. They loaded the supplies in comfortable silence, and then Isaac said, "We should celebrate." "Celebrate?" Willa asked, surprised. "You closed a difficult chapter," Isaac said. "That deserves recognition. The hotel dining room serves a decent lunch. Will you join me?" It felt significant somehow, like more than just a meal, but Willa found herself nodding. "I would like that." The hotel dining room was small but clean, with white tablecloths and a view of the main street. They ordered roast beef and potatoes, and as they ate, Isaac told her about his plans for the ranch in more detail than he ever had before. He talked about his dreams, his fears, his hopes for the future. Willa found herself sharing her own thoughts, her own dreams that she had kept buried for so long. "I always wanted to teach," she admitted. "Before the accident, I thought maybe I could be a school teacher. But after, I assumed that was impossible. What school would hire a teacher who could not stand for long periods, who could not chase children in a schoolyard?" "A smart school," Isaac said. "Knowledge does not require perfect legs." Willa smiled. "Maybe someday. For now, I'm content at the ranch." "Are you?" Isaac asked. His gray eyes were intense on hers. "Truly content, I am," Willa said softly. "More than I have ever been." Isaac reached across the table and covered her hand with his. His palm was warm and calloused from work. "I'm glad," he said. "I cannot imagine the ranch without you anymore, Willa. You have become essential." Willa felt her breath catch. The way he was looking at her, the way his thumb was tracing small circles on the back of her hand, it was all suddenly very clear. This was not just about employment. This was something much deeper, something that had been growing between them since that first day on the train platform. Before she could respond, the door to the dining room banged open and a woman rushed in, looking around frantically. "Is there a doctor here? Anyone?" "There's been an accident at the livery." Isaac was on his feet immediately. "What happened?" "A horse kicked young Billy Morton. He's bleeding bad." Isaac turned to Willa. "Wait here." But Willa was already standing. "I'm coming with you. I know basic wound care." They rushed out together, Willa doing her best to keep up despite her limp. At the livery stable, a crowd had gathered around a young man who was lying on the ground, blood streaming from a gash on his head. The town doctor was out on a call to one of the outlying ranches, and no one seemed to know what to do. Willa pushed through the crowd and knelt beside the injured man, ignoring the protest from her leg. "Someone get me clean cloth and water now," she ordered. People jumped to obey. Willa examined the wound quickly and efficiently, her hands steady despite the blood. "It looks worse than it is," she told the pale-faced boy. "Head wounds bleed heavily. You are going to be fine." She cleaned the wound, applied pressure to stop the bleeding, and then bandaged it neatly with strips of cloth someone had provided. By the time the doctor arrived 20 minutes later, Billy Morton was sitting up and looking sheepish about all the fuss. The doctor examined Willa's work and nodded approvingly. "You have medical training." "I nursed my aunt through 2 bouts of pneumonia and a broken hip," Willa said. "You learn by necessity." "You did well," the doctor said. He was an older man with kind eyes. "If you ever need work, the town could use someone with your skills. My wife helps me, but she has been wanting to reduce her hours." "Thank you," Willa said. "I'll keep that in mind." As they walked back to the wagon, Isaac was quiet. "Finally," he said, "you never told me you could do that." "It never came up," Willa replied. "You knelt in the dirt without hesitation," Isaac said. "You did not worry about your leg, about the pain. You just acted." "Someone needed help," Willa said simply. "The leg does not matter when someone is bleeding." Isaac stopped walking and turned to face her. They were standing in the middle of the street and people were streaming around them, but he did not seem to notice or care. "You are remarkable," he said. Do you know that? You are the strongest person I have ever met." Willa felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm not strong, I just do what needs to be done." "That's what strength is," Isaac said. "Walk with me, Willa, not just now, but always. Stay at the ranch not as my housekeeper, but as my wife. Build a life with me, build a future." The world seemed to stop spinning. Willa stared at him, her heart hammering in her chest. "What?" Isaac took her hands in his. "I'm asking you to marry me. I know this is sudden. I know we have only known each other for 2 months, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life. You belong at the Double Y. You belong with me. I love you, Willa Crawford, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I am worthy of you." Willa felt tears spilling down her cheeks. "You love me." "From almost the first moment," Isaac admitted. "When you told me the groom had left you, when you held your head high even though you were devastated. I saw your courage, your strength, your heart, and every day since then I have fallen deeper." "I love you too," Willa whispered. "I did not want to admit it to myself. I thought I was here just as an employee, that I could not hope for more. But Isaac, I love you so much it scares me." Isaac pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "Then marry me. Say yes." "Yes," Willa said against his chest. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Isaac pulled back just enough to kiss her, his lips gentle and warm on hers. Around them, people who had witnessed the proposal broke into applause and cheers, but Willa barely heard them. She was lost in the kiss, in the feel of Isaac's arms around her, in the incredible knowledge that she was loved and wanted and chosen. When they finally broke apart, Isaac was grinning. "We should probably make this official. The church is right there." They found the minister and arranged for the wedding to take place in 2 weeks, time enough for Isaac's sister to travel from California if she could make it, time enough for Willa to prepare. But Willa did not need the time. She would have married him that very day if it were possible. The ride back to the ranch was filled with laughter and plans, and stolen kisses whenever Isaac could spare a hand from the reins. When they arrived, the ranch hands took one look at their faces and started whooping with joy. Old Pete grabbed Willa in a bear hug that lifted her off her feet. "About time the boss came to his senses," Pete declared. "We have been taking bets on how long it would take him to propose." "You were betting on us?" Willa asked, laughing. "Everyone could see you two were falling for each other," one of the younger hands said. "Everyone except you two, apparently." That night after dinner, after the celebration with the ranch hands, Isaac and Willa sat together on the front porch watching the stars emerge. Isaac had his arm around her shoulders, and Willa leaned against him, feeling safe and content and impossibly happy. "Tell me about your sister," Willa said. "Will she come to the wedding?" "I sent a telegram from town," Isaac said. "If she can get away, she will be here. Her name is Iris, and she is going to love you. You remind me of her in many ways, strong, smart, not willing to let anything hold her back." "I want to meet her," Willa said. "I want to know your family, your history, everything." "You will have a lifetime to learn it all," Isaac promised. He kissed the top of her head. "I cannot believe my luck. 2 months ago, I was a lonely rancher eating burned beans. Now I am about to marry the most incredible woman in Colorado. 2 months ago, I was a rejected bride with nowhere to go," Willa said. "Now I am about to marry the kindest, most honorable man I have ever known. If Thomas Henderson had not left me on that platform, I would never have found you. In a strange way, I am grateful to him." "I am grateful he was an idiot," Isaac agreed. "His loss was my gain." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Willa said, "Isaac, there's something I need to tell you about children." She felt him tense slightly. "Go on." "The doctor who treated me after the accident said there might be complications. Because of the injury, because of how my hip healed. He said I might not be able to have children, and if I did, pregnancy and childbirth could be difficult or dangerous. Willa took a deep breath. I need you to know that before we marry. If children are important to you, if that's something you need, then maybe we should reconsider. Isaac was quiet for a long moment, and Willa felt fear curl in her stomach. But then he tightened his arm around her and said firmly, "Willa, look at me." She lifted her head to meet his eyes. They were fierce in the starlight. "I want you," Isaac said. "Just you. If we are blessed with children, I will be grateful. If we are not, I will still count myself the luckiest man alive because I get to spend my life with you. Do you understand? You are enough exactly as you are." Willa felt tears streaming down her face again. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do," Isaac said. "And I intend to spend every day proving it to you." He kissed her again, slow and deep, a promise and a declaration all at once. When they finally went inside, Willa felt like she was floating. This was real. This was happening. She was going to marry Isaac Yates, and she was going to build a life with him at the Double Y Ranch. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Willa sewed herself a wedding dress with fabric Isaac bought in town, a simple but elegant design in cream-colored wool. The ranch hands spruced up the house and the yard, building an arbor for the ceremony and hauling in flowers from the meadow. Old Pete practiced baking a cake, producing several disasters before finally achieving something edible. 3 days before the wedding, a telegram arrived. Isaac's sister Iris would arrive the day before the ceremony, accompanied by her husband Marcus. Isaac was thrilled, and Willa found herself nervous about meeting them. What if Iris disapproved of her? What if she thought Willa was not good enough for her brother? But when Iris arrived, those fears evaporated. She climbed down from the stagecoach in Delta with the help of her husband, leaning on a cane, and when she saw Isaac waiting, she let out a whoop of joy and threw herself into his arms. She was petite with dark hair like Isaac's, and her eyes were the same storm gray. Her limp was more pronounced than Willa's, but she moved with confidence and grace. "You must be Willa," Iris said, turning to her with a warm smile. "Isaac's letters have been full of you. I am so happy to finally meet you." Willa found herself pulled into a hug. "I'm happy to meet you too," she said. "Isaac has told me so much about you." "All good things, I hope," Iris said, linking her arm through Willa's. "Now you must tell me everything. I want to hear all about how my stubborn brother finally admitted his feelings." The two women bonded immediately, sitting up late that night talking while Isaac and Marcus caught up in the parlor. Iris was funny and warm and refreshingly honest about her own struggles with her injury. "People stare," she told Willa. "They always will. But you learn to decide whose opinions matter and whose do not. My husband sees me, really sees me, not just my limp. That's what matters. Isaac sees you the same way." "He does," Willa agreed softly. "He makes me feel whole." "You are whole," Iris said firmly. "With or without a limp, with or without a husband. Never forget that." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the sky a brilliant blue and the air crisp with the promise of winter. Willa dressed carefully in her new gown, her hands trembling slightly as she pinned up her hair. Iris helped her, chattering cheerfully to cover Willa's nerves. "You look beautiful," Iris said when Willa was finally ready. "Isaac is going to lose his mind when he sees you." The ceremony was held outside under the arbor the ranch hands had built. All of Isaac's men were there, dressed in their best clothes. Several families from neighboring ranches had come as well, and even the minister from Delta had ridden out for the occasion. It was a small gathering but felt significant and right. Isaac stood waiting at the arbor, and when he saw Willa walking toward him on the arm of old Pete, who had volunteered to give her away, his face transformed. Willa had never seen such naked love and joy in anyone's eyes. She forgot about her limp, forgot about the people watching, forgot everything except the man waiting for her. The ceremony was simple and traditional. They exchanged vows, their voices steady and sure. Isaac slipped a gold band on Willa's finger, and she did the same for him. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Isaac pulled her close and kissed her deeply, to the cheers and applause of their guests. The celebration lasted well into the evening. There was food and music and dancing, though Willa could not participate in the dancing. She sat with Iris and watched Isaac being pulled into a reel by some of the ranch women, laughing at his protests. But every few minutes, his eyes would find hers across the crowd, and the look in them made her heart swell. Finally, as the sun was setting and the guests were beginning to leave, Isaac came to Willa and offered his hand. "Walk with me," he asked. It was an echo of his proposal, and Willa took his hand with a smile. They walked away from the house, away from the noise and the lights, out into the quiet evening. The mountains were silhouetted against the darkening sky, and the first stars were beginning to appear. "Are you happy?" Isaac asked. "More than I ever thought possible," Willa replied. "This morning I woke up as Willa Crawford. Tonight I am Willa Yates. It feels like magic." "It feels like destiny," Isaac corrected. He stopped walking and turned to face her, cupping her face in his hands. "I love you, Willa Yates. I will love you every day for the rest of our lives. I will never give you reason to doubt it, never give you reason to regret this choice." "I could never regret you," Willa whispered. "You saved me, Isaac, in every way a person can be saved." "We saved each other," Isaac said. He kissed her softly. "Now come on. We have a lifetime ahead of us, but it starts tonight." They walked back to the house hand in hand, and Willa felt complete in a way she had never experienced before. She had found her home, her purpose, her partner. The journey had been difficult, the path uncertain, but it had led her here, to this ranch, to this man, to this life. And she would not change a single step of it. The first year of their marriage was everything Willa could have hoped for and more. She settled into her role as Isaac's wife with ease, continuing to manage the household while also becoming more involved in the ranch operations. She learned to help with the accounting, tracking expenses and income with meticulous care. She learned which cattle buyers were trustworthy and which tried to cheat. She even learned to ride again, cautiously at first on a gentle mare Isaac chose specially for her. The first time she rode out with Isaac to check the herds, he watched her carefully, ready to help if needed. But Willa managed well, her bad leg supported by a specially designed stirrup Isaac had commissioned from the blacksmith in town. The freedom of riding across the open rangeland was exhilarating, and she laughed with pure joy as the wind whipped her hair free from its pins. "You should see your face right now," Isaac called to her, grinning. "I forgot how much I loved this," Willa called back. "I thought I would never ride again." "You can do anything you set your mind to," Isaac said. "I learned that about you the first week you were here." They worked together to improve the ranch, implementing the breeding program Isaac had dreamed about. They bought quality breeding stock, built new facilities, and began developing a reputation for the Double Y brand. It was hard work, but they were partners in every sense of the word, and the ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Iris and Marcus visited again in the spring, and the two women continued building their friendship through frequent letters. Iris had advice for everything, from dealing with difficult neighbors to managing household staff to handling the inevitable gossip that followed anyone who was different. "People will always talk," Iris wrote, "but their words cannot hurt you unless you give them power. You have Isaac, you have a good life, you have purpose. That's more than most people can claim." In late summer, Willa realized she was pregnant. She had been feeling tired and queasy for several days before the truth dawned on her, and when it did, she felt a mixture of joy and fear. She remembered what the doctor had said all those years ago about complications, about danger. But she also felt the fierce determination that had carried her through every other challenge in her life. She told Isaac that evening after dinner, pulling him aside to the privacy of their bedroom. "I need to tell you something," she said, taking his hands. Isaac immediately looked concerned. "What's wrong?" "Nothing is wrong," Willa said. "At least, I hope nothing is wrong. Isaac, I'm pregnant." For a moment, Isaac just stared at her. Then a grin split his face, and he let out a whoop of joy that probably carried all the way to the bunkhouse. He picked Willa up and spun her around, laughing like a child. "Careful," Willa protested, though she was laughing too. "Put me down before you hurt the baby." Isaac set her down gently, then immediately knelt and pressed his ear to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there," he said. "This is your father. I already love you more than I can say." Willa ran her fingers through his hair, her heart full to bursting. "I'm scared," she admitted. "The doctor said there might be complications." Isaac looked up at her, his expression serious now. "Then we will see the best doctor we can find. We will take every precaution. We will do whatever it takes to keep you both safe." "But Willa, we are going to face this together, just like we face everything. You are not alone in this." They traveled to Denver to see a specialist, a doctor who had trained in Boston and had extensive experience with difficult pregnancies. He examined Willa thoroughly and confirmed that there were risks. Her hip injury had healed in a way that might make childbirth difficult. But he also said that, with proper care and monitoring, there was no reason she could not deliver a healthy baby. "You will need to rest more as the pregnancy progresses," the doctor told her. "No more riding horses, no heavy lifting. You will need to be careful." Willa chafed at the restrictions, but she followed them faithfully. Isaac was almost comically protective, refusing to let her do anything he deemed risky. Old Pete and the ranch hands rallied around her, taking over her usual duties without complaint. Iris sent care packages and encouraging letters, sharing her own experiences with her 2 children. The pregnancy was difficult. Willa's leg ached constantly, and by her 7th month she could barely walk. She spent most of her time in a rocking chair Isaac had positioned near the parlor window, watching the ranch operations from inside. It was frustrating and boring, but she endured it because the alternative was unthinkable. Isaac read to her every evening, everything from dime novels to Shakespeare. He brought her wildflowers and fresh fruit from town. He rubbed her swollen feet and told her she was beautiful even when she felt like a beached whale. He never once complained about the extra work or the worry. In late winter, on a snowy February evening, Willa's labor began. The doctor from Delta came immediately, bringing his wife, who was an experienced midwife. They had prepared for this, had planned for every contingency, but Willa was still terrified when the first real contraction hit. Isaac refused to leave her side despite the protests of the midwife, who insisted that childbirth was no place for a man. "She is my wife," Isaac said flatly. "I am staying." The labor was long and brutal. Willa had endured pain before, but this was something beyond anything she had experienced. For hours she struggled, encouraged by Isaac's steady voice in her ear, his hand gripping hers so tightly she thought bones might break. "You can do this," he told her over and over. "You are the strongest person I know. Just a little longer, my love. Just a little longer." Finally, as dawn was breaking over the mountains, their son was born. He came into the world screaming with healthy lungs, and when the midwife placed him in Willa's arms, she forgot every moment of pain. He was perfect, tiny and red-faced and absolutely perfect. "A boy," Isaac said, his voice choked with tears. "We have a son, Willa. We have a son," Willa agreed. She was exhausted beyond measure but also suffused with joy. We did it. They named him James after Isaac's father. James Yates, born on a snowy morning at the Double Y Ranch, healthy and strong and loved beyond reason. The recovery was slow. The childbirth had been as difficult as the doctor had feared, and Willa was weak for weeks afterward. But she healed, aided by Isaac's constant care and her own stubborn determination. By the time spring arrived, she was up and around again, though she tired more easily than before, and her limp was more pronounced. "I am falling apart," she joked one evening as Isaac helped her up the stairs to bed. "You are perfect," Isaac countered. "You brought our son into the world. You are a warrior, Willa Yates." James was a happy baby, quick to smile and curious about everything. As he grew, it became clear he had inherited his father's gray eyes and his mother's brown hair. He was the center of their world, doted on by everyone at the ranch. Old Pete carved him toys, the ranch hands taught him to identify different animal sounds, and Isaac carried him everywhere, pointing out features of the ranch and telling him stories. When James was 2 years old, Willa realized she was pregnant again. This time, the news was met with more trepidation than celebration. The first pregnancy had been so difficult, and the doctor had warned them that subsequent pregnancies would likely be even more challenging. But Willa was also older now, more experienced, and she faced the news with determined optimism. "We can do this again," she told Isaac. "We know what to expect this time." This pregnancy was indeed harder. Willa was confined to bed rest by her 6th month, and Isaac hired a woman from town to help with James and the household. He refused to let Willa worry about anything except her own health and the baby. He read to her, talked to her, kept her company during the long, boring days. Their daughter was born on a warm August evening, smaller than James had been but equally healthy. They named her Marie, after Willa's mother. She had Isaac's dark hair and Willa's green eyes, and she was quieter than her brother had been, more observant. The doctor who attended the birth took Isaac aside afterward and told him bluntly that there should be no more pregnancies. The strain on Willa's body had been immense, and another pregnancy could kill her. Isaac held his daughter and felt a cold fear settle in his chest, but he also felt grateful. They had 2 healthy children, they had each other, and they had built a good life together. It was more than enough. The years that followed were busy and full. James grew into a serious, responsible boy who loved helping his father with the ranch. Marie was dreamy and artistic, always drawing pictures or making up stories. Willa homeschooled them both, drawing on her old dream of teaching, and they flourished under her patient instruction. The Double Y Ranch continued to prosper. Isaac's breeding program was recognized throughout Colorado, and cattle buyers came from as far away as Kansas City to purchase his stock. He hired more men, expanded the grazing land, and built a reputation for integrity and quality. Willa managed the business side of the operation, her careful accounting and shrewd negotiations ensuring their financial success. They faced challenges, of course. There were harsh winters where they lost cattle to the cold, dry summers where water was scarce, years where prices dropped and money was tight. But they faced everything together, partners in every sense of the word. On their 10th anniversary, Isaac took Willa back to the spot where he had proposed in Delta. The town had grown over the years, adding new buildings and even a proper hospital. But the essence of it remained the same, a frontier town slowly transforming into something more permanent. "Do you remember standing here?" Isaac asked, holding her hand. "I remember thinking you were insane," Willa said, laughing, "proposing to me in the middle of the street with half the town watching." "I could not wait another moment," Isaac said. I had to know if you would take a chance on me." "Best chance I ever took," Willa said softly. They renewed their vows that evening in a small ceremony at the church, with James and Marie standing as witnesses. Iris and Marcus came from California, bringing their 3 children. It was a joyful reunion, and afterward they all went back to the ranch for a celebration that lasted late into the night. As Willa watched her family, watched Isaac laughing with Marcus while the children played nearby, watched the ranch hands she had known for a decade celebrating with them, she felt a profound sense of peace. Her life had not turned out anything like she had planned. The path had been difficult and often painful, but it had led her here, to this moment, to this life, to this man and these children and this home. She thought about the frightened young woman who had stepped off the train in Delta all those years ago, alone and rejected and uncertain. She wished she could tell that woman that everything would work out, that the pain would lead to joy, that being left behind by Thomas Henderson was actually a gift. Isaac caught her eye across the crowd and smiled, and Willa felt her heart swell with love. He excused himself from his conversation and made his way to her, offering his hand. "Walk with me," he asked. It was their ritual now, those 2 words that had started everything. Willa took his hand, and together they slipped away from the party, walking out into the quiet evening. The mountains were purple in the fading light, and the stars were beginning to emerge. "What are you thinking about?" Isaac asked. "How lucky I am," Willa said. "How grateful." "I am the lucky one," Isaac countered. "You made me believe in love again, Willa. You made this ranch into a home. You gave me James and Marie. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Willa corrected. She stopped walking and turned to face him. "I love you, Isaac Yates, more now than even on the day we married. Every year, every day, I love you more." Isaac pulled her close and kissed her, deep and sweet and full of promise. They had been married for 10 years, had weathered storms and celebrated triumphs, had built a life together from nothing. And they would have many more years ahead, Willa knew. Many more walks, many more sunsets, many more moments of quiet joy. The children were growing up fast. James, at age 9, was already talking about taking over the ranch someday, following in his father's footsteps. Marie, at age 7, had announced that she wanted to be an artist and live in Paris, which had made Isaac choke on his coffee. But Willa just smiled and encouraged her daughter's dreams, knowing that the girl had plenty of time to figure out her path. As the children entered their teenage years, the ranch continued to grow and evolve. James proved to be a natural cattleman, with an instinctive understanding of the animals and the land. Marie surprised everyone by developing a passion for horse breeding, spending hours working with the horses and showing a gift for training even the most difficult animals. "She has your stubbornness," Isaac told Willa, watching Marie work with a skittish colt. "And your patience," Willa replied. They made a good team, all 4 of them. The Double Y Ranch was truly a family operation now, with everyone contributing according to their strengths. Willa still managed the accounts and correspondence, though her role had evolved over the years. She had also become involved in the community, helping to establish a school in Delta and serving on various committees. Her limp had never gone away, and some days were more difficult than others, but she had long since stopped letting it define her. One fall evening when James was 16 and Marie was 14, Willa found Isaac standing on the porch looking out at the land. She came up beside him and he wrapped an arm around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How fast time goes," Isaac said. "It feels like yesterday that you stepped off that train and now our children are almost grown." "Not quite grown yet," Willa said. "We still have a few years before they leave us." "James will never leave," Isaac said with certainty. "This land is in his blood." But Marie, she might go seek her fortune elsewhere, and I will let her, even though it will break my heart. We raised them to be strong and independent, Willa said. Whatever paths they choose, they will be good ones. Isaac turned to face her, studying her in the fading light. There were threads of gray in her brown hair now, and fine lines around her eyes. He had his own gray hairs, his own wrinkles earned from years of working in the sun. But to him, she was as beautiful as the day he had pulled her out of the path of that runaway horse. I would do it all again, he said suddenly. Every moment, every choice, everything that led me to you, I would do it exactly the same. Even the burned beans, Willa teased. Especially the burned beans, Isaac said. They were what made me desperate enough to offer you a job. They laughed together, comfortable in their shared history, secure in their love. The years continued to pass. James took on more responsibility at the ranch, working alongside his father and learning everything Isaac could teach him. Marie went away to school in Denver, studying art and business, and returned 2 years later with a degree and a plan to establish a horse breeding program that would rival any in the state. When James was 23, he married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring property, a practical young woman named Sarah who fit seamlessly into the family. When Marie was 21, she shocked everyone by falling in love with a visiting horse buyer from Kentucky, a charming man who recognized her talent and proposed a partnership both professional and personal. Willa and Isaac became grandparents, first when James and Sarah had twin boys, then when Marie and her husband had a daughter. The ranch house that had once seemed too large was now filled with noise and laughter again, with grandchildren running through the rooms just as James and Marie had once done. On their 25th anniversary, Isaac took Willa back to Delta one more time. The town had transformed completely, with paved streets and electric lights and all the trappings of modern life. But the train station was still there, preserved as a historical landmark. They stood on the platform where they had first met, and Isaac said, "Do you remember what you told me that day? That you had nowhere to go, nothing to offer." "I was wrong," Willa said. "I had everything to offer, I just did not know it yet." "I knew it," Isaac said. "From the moment I saw you standing here, refusing to cry even though your heart was breaking, I knew you were extraordinary." They had lived a full life together, built something lasting and good. The Double Y Ranch would continue long after they were gone, passed down through their children and grandchildren. Their love story, which had started with rejection and rescue, had become a foundation for something bigger than themselves. As they rode back to the ranch that evening, the setting sun painting the mountains in shades of gold and pink, Willa reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the girl who had answered a mail-order bride advertisement, desperate for a new start. She thought about being left on a train platform, about the terror and humiliation of that moment. And she thought about Isaac appearing in her life like an answer to a prayer she had not known how to pray. If Thomas Henderson had not abandoned her, she would never have found Isaac. She would never have known this kind of love, this kind of partnership, this kind of life. She would have been stuck in a loveless marriage with a coward, managing a mercantile and wondering what might have been. Instead, she had built an empire with the man she loved. She had raised 2 wonderful children who were now building lives of their own. She had turned a broken leg and a broken heart into something beautiful and lasting. "Thank you," she said softly to Isaac as they pulled up to the ranch house. "For what?" he asked. "For seeing me," Willa said. "For asking me to walk with you, for loving me exactly as I am." Isaac helped her down from the wagon and pulled her into his arms. "It has been the greatest privilege of my life," he said. "Walking with you, Willa Yates, today, tomorrow, and every day until my last breath." They stood together in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the land they had built together, the family they had created, the legacy they would leave behind. It was a good life, an extraordinary life, and it had all started with a simple invitation: walk with me. And Willa had walked, despite her limp, despite her fear, despite all the reasons she might have said no. She had walked with him into a future neither of them could have imagined, and it had been worth every step. The ranch thrived for decades more under their stewardship, and then under James's capable management. Isaac and Willa grew old together, their hands becoming gnarled with arthritis, their steps slower but always side by side. They watched their grandchildren grow, saw some of them choose the ranch life and others venture out into the wider world. They celebrated births and mourned losses, weathered economic depressions and natural disasters, and through it all, their love remained constant. On a spring morning many years later, when they were both in their 70s, Willa woke to find Isaac watching her with that same look he had given her on their wedding day. "Good morning," she said, her voice rough with sleep. "Good morning," Isaac replied. "I was just thinking how beautiful you are," Willa laughed, a sound that was still young despite her aged body. "I am old and wrinkled. You are perfect," Isaac corrected. "Every year with you has been a gift, Willa, every single day." They spent that day as they spent most days now, moving slowly through their routines, watching the ranch operate around them. James and his sons did the heavy work now, but Isaac and Willa were still consulted on major decisions, their experience and wisdom valued. In the evening they sat together on the porch, wrapped in blankets against the cool air. Willa's leg ached as it always did, but Isaac rubbed it gently, easing the pain as he had done 10,000 times before. "We did well," Willa said, looking out at the ranch. "Better than I ever dreamed." "We did perfectly," Isaac agreed. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors. It was a sight they had seen countless times, but it never grew old. The beauty of this place, of this life they had built, remained fresh and miraculous. When the stars began to emerge, Isaac stood slowly and offered Willa his hand. "Walk with me," he asked, just as he had asked so many times before. Willa took his hand, and together they made their slow way down from the porch and out into the yard. Their steps were measured now, both of them dealing with the aches and pains of age, but they moved together in perfect harmony. "Where are we going?" Willa asked. "Nowhere in particular," Isaac said. "I just wanted to walk with you." They did not go far, just to the edge of the yard where they could look back at the house with its glowing windows, where they could see the barn and the corrals and the land stretching out in all directions. "This is what I dreamed of," Isaac said. "When I was young and first inherited this ranch from my father, I dreamed of building something lasting, something meaningful. But I could not have done it alone, Willa. You made all of this possible." "We made it possible together," Willa said. "I was just a broken woman with nowhere to go. You gave me a chance and we built something neither of us could have achieved alone." Isaac turned to face her, cupping her weathered face in his work-roughened hands. "You were never broken," he said firmly. "You were bent, perhaps, wounded, but never broken. You were the strongest person I ever met from the very first day." Willa felt tears slide down her cheeks. After all these years, he could still make her cry with his words, with the depth of his love. "I love you," she whispered. "I will love you forever, Isaac Yates." "And I will love you forever, Willa Yates," he replied. "In this life and whatever comes after." They kissed there under the stars, two old people who had loved each other well and truly for more than half a century. It was not a passionate kiss, not like the kisses of their youth. But it was deep and sweet and full of all the years they had shared, all the moments of joy and sorrow, all the promises kept and dreams fulfilled. When they finally made their way back to the house, James was waiting on the porch, concern on his face. "I was starting to worry," he said. "No need," Isaac assured him. "I was just walking with your mother." James smiled, understanding passing between father and son. He had grown up watching his parents' love story, had learned from their example what marriage should be. "Good night, then," he said. "Sarah and I will see you at breakfast." Isaac and Willa climbed the stairs slowly to their bedroom, helping each other as they had learned to do. They prepared for bed with the easy familiarity of decades together, and when they finally lay down, Willa rested her head on Isaac's shoulder just as she had done for more than 50 years. "You ever think about that day in Delta?" she asked. "When the horse nearly ran me down?" "Sometimes," Isaac admitted. "I think about how close I came to losing you before I ever really had you, if I had been a second slower, if I had not been standing in just the right place." "But you were," Willa said. "You were exactly where you needed to be, exactly when you needed to be there." "It was fate, Isaac. It was meant to be." "I believe that," Isaac said. "I believe we were meant to find each other, meant to build this life together." They drifted off to sleep wrapped in each other's arms, peaceful and content. They had lived well, loved well, and left a legacy that would endure. Isaac Yates died peacefully in his sleep 2 years later at the age of 78. He went to bed beside Willa and simply did not wake up. The doctor said his heart had finally worn out after so many years of hard work and full living. Willa grieved deeply, but not hopelessly. She knew she had been blessed beyond measure to have had him for so long, to have shared such a remarkable life with him. The funeral was large, attended by family and friends from across Colorado, all of them with stories about Isaac's integrity, his kindness, his unwavering dedication to the people and things he loved. She lived for 5 more years after his death, remaining at the ranch that had been her home for more than half a century. She watched her grandchildren grow, met several great-grandchildren, and spent her days quietly managing what she could and remembering what had been. On her final evening, when she was 82 years old, Willa sat on the porch and watched the sun set behind the mountains one last time. James sat with her, holding her hand, knowing somehow that this was goodbye. "I am proud of you," Willa told him. "You have taken what your father and I built and made it even better. The Double Y will thrive for generations because of you." "You and Dad gave me a foundation," James said. "You showed me what love looks like, what partnership means, what it takes to build something lasting." "Everything I am, I owe to you both." Willa smiled. "We were lucky," she said, "so very lucky." She went to bed that night and passed away peacefully in her sleep, just as Isaac had done. And if anyone had asked her, if she could have spoken one final time, she would have said that her life had been extraordinary. That being left on a train platform in Delta, Colorado, in 1884 had been the best thing that ever happened to her. That one man's rejection had led to another man's love, and that love had transformed everything. She would have said that Isaac Yates had saved her, but more than that, they had saved each other. They had walked together through life, through all its challenges and joys, and they had created something beautiful. The Double Y Ranch continued for generations, passed down through the family, and the story of Isaac and Willa became part of the ranch's legend. Their descendants told and retold the tale of the mail-order bride who was left behind because of her limp, and the rancher who said, "Walk with me." It became a family touchstone, a reminder of where they had come from and what mattered most. And on quiet evenings, when the sun set behind the mountains and the stars emerged in the vast Colorado sky, if you listened carefully, you could almost hear them still. 2 voices, weathered with time but strong with love, echoing across the years. "Walk with me," one said. and the other answered, always and forever, yes.